What's going on, guys? Welcome to my March 5th online module presentation. My name is Alex Ariana, and the response to this week's module was after reading the Wrong and Priesel reading and watching the New York Times video to explain your understanding of integration. So after doing the reading and watching the video, integration is the intermixing of people or groups that were previously segregated. And United States schools have been the most important social institution for absorbing new immigrants. And that's because that's a primary reason why people immigrate to the United States. They want to bring their families and they want their kids to get a better education so their kids could have better opportunities. But the task of integrating new groups of people into United States society has just gotten harder and harder throughout the years. So how do we do it? How do we incorporate immigrants into the United States society? The article talks about two ways to do it, and the first is through classic assimilation. So that's the elimination of ethnic identity and the reconstruction of an all-American and English-only immigrant identity. So pretty much you come here, your culture, your language becomes secondary to learning English and learning the American way. Each generation living in the United States will improve its socioeconomic status as children, and they become more familiar with U.S. culture, English language, and institutions just like schools. So you could take my family, for example, where my grandparents came here, didn't get an education, and didn't speak the language. But then they had children, and all of their children graduated high school and are fluent in English. And they had children, which is me and my cousins, and we all speak English, we all go to college, and the idea of this is that socioeconomic status will improve throughout each generation. And the second one is pluralism. And pluralism is a collection of different approaches to immigrant incorporation. So the first is selective, which tends to characterize the children of immigrants with better resources and socioeconomic prospects. The second is segmented, which suggests that different immigrant groups assimilate into different segments of society. The third is accommodation without assimilation, and that is to help members of the new culture adapt without completely losing their original cultural identity in the process. So you have to ask yourself, what's more important? Is it the cultural characteristics of the immigrants themselves, or is it the social structures of the receiving society? So how does this affect schools, and what does this have to do with schools? United States public education has rejected maintaining native language and cultural values, and they prefer to emphasize Americanization to socialize immigrants into the norms of American culture. So that's similar to classic assimilation, in which the students come here and they're taught in English, they learn English, and they learn the American culture. The challenge is that new immigrant students need a variety of services. So they need bilingual instruction along with other services, but they need to learn basic survival skills to cope in the United States first, which makes learning and education takes a back seat to these survival skills that they have to learn, because they come here and a lot of times their parents are working so much, so they're taking care of their brothers and sisters, so their learning is secondary. Oops. So with the video, the Battle of School Busing, this video talks about a time when segregation was really popular, where blacks went to black schools, whites went to white schools. So they developed busing as a strategy to reduce the racial segregation in schools. So the idea was that they're all going to ride the bus together and hopefully get along. That didn't work at first. During the first year, there was racial fighting and boycotts as expected. But with time, they adjusted to each other and learned how to get along. Years later, it proved that the students who attended the diverse schools, they ended up scoring better on tests, they were more likely to graduate high school and go to college, and they were more likely to avoid crime. This went on until 1999, when they made a decision to stop mandatory busing, because they figured segregation is a thing of the past, so we need to focus more on instruction and the quality of education. What that did, though, is it stopped making the schools diverse. So the middle school in West Charlotte, that was once 40% black and 60% white in 1970, became 80% black and 1% white when the video was made in, I think, like 2010. And what happened was the blacks and Latinos, they just ended up going to schools closer to them because they weren't able to go to different schools. And the schools that they attended where 65% of the kids were poor. Um, what busing did was allow kids that from different socioeconomic statuses to be brought together in one institution, but that was taken away when busing left. So the schools became more segregated both racially and economically than they ever anticipated. Some of today's immigrant issues are obviously we know we have millions of undocumented immigrants, and some of them they just want to come here to have more opportunity, but they end up getting sent back, which separates families, which takes a toll on not only children but spouses and things of that nature. So we have to ask ourselves, how should we make our immigration system? Should it be more family based, where if you have family here, then it's easier to become a citizen, or should it be economic based, where we look at what skills they bring and how we can benefit from having these immigrants in our society? So thanks for listening, guys. Have a good one.